Okay, so like, think about this for a second.
Yeah.
You have a cartoon,
Right.
and it's about this goofy Great Dane and his friends, and they're driving around in this like totally beat up van solving mysteries. But get this, the mysteries pretty much always end up being some kind of elaborate hoax. I mean, seriously, would anyone have actually thought back then that this whole thing would become like this global crime solving brand? It's still going strong after all these years.
Yeah, it's really something.
It's crazy. So that leads to the big question we're diving into today.
Mm.
How did Scooby-Doo and the whole Mystery Incorporated gang,
Yeah.
how they accidentally build this like totally awesome brand?
It is kind of wild when you think about it. They basically stumbled onto something that a lot of companies spend like a ton of money trying to figure out
Yeah,
how to build that brand awareness. And they did it in a way that we'd call, word of mouth marketing today.
totally. And forget all the fancy business terms for a minute. Let's just treat Scooby-Doo like, he's our furry little case study. So for this deep dive, our goal is to figure out how, without some big marketing plan, Mystery Inc. became so iconic. Like, everyone knows who they are. We're going to see how their adventures got people talking and how they built a brand that's, like, stood the test of time.
Absolutely. And that's where all these sources we've gathered come in. We've got articles on brand awareness, basically how a brand gets to be so familiar.
Right.
And then there's all the stuff on WUM. Like when people just can't stop talking about a product. We've even got rankings of all the different Scooby-Doo shows, which is pretty interesting. So looking at all this together can give us a really good idea of how this whole phenomenon happened.
What's cool for you, the listener, is that by looking at Scooby-Doo, a show that's, let's be honest, pretty goofy a lot of the time, you can really get a handle on what makes a brand memorable.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about theory here. This is like seeing it all play out right in front of us, albeit, in cartoon form.
Yeah.
But the lessons we can learn from it apply to so many things.
For sure. So to start, I think we got to look at those basic building blocks. What were the things in that original Scooby-Doo Where Are You series
Right.
that really set the stage for this brand identity that just keeps going and going?
Well, the visuals are a huge part of it, right? I mean, come on, the Mystery Machine. That green and blue van, the flowers painted on the side. It's practically a character itself.
Oh, for sure.
You see it, you know exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the gang's outfits. Velma with her orange turtleneck and red skirt. Fred in his blue ascot and white sweater.
Mm-hmm.
Daphne with her purple dress and green scarf. And Shaggy, always in that green tee and brown pants.
Oh, yeah.
Even Scooby has his blue collar with the tag.
Mm-hmm.
Sprout Social really stresses how important that visual consistency is, for people to recognize a brand. And the Scooby-Doo folks, maybe they didn't realize it at the time, but
Right.
they nailed it.
Totally. And I think another piece of the puzzle is that each character brought something unique to the group. HubSpot talks about how important it is to give a brand a personality, like one that people can connect with. And when you think about it,
Yeah.
you've got Scooby. He's a total scaredy cat, but he's got a good heart.
Right.
Then there's Shaggy, always hungry, always nervous. And Velma, she's the brains of the operation.
Uh-huh.
You've got Fred, the brave leader, and Daphne, who's always resourceful and, stylish. So each of them has their own thing, their own role. And that makes the whole brand more than just a cartoon about solving spooky mysteries.
I totally agree. And speaking of storytelling, HubSpot mentions that too. And if you look at the original Scooby-Doo show, the structure of the stories was super consistent.
Absolutely. Every episode follows the same basic pattern. The gang piles into the mystery machine. They head off to some new, usually creepy place. A mystery pops up, and it always seems like it's something supernatural. Then they run around, get into all sorts of crazy situations, and in the end, Velma figures everything out.
Right.
She puts the clues together, and bam, it turns out it was just a regular person behind it all.
A crook in a mask.
Yeah, exactly. So even though it was predictable, it was still fun. And that familiarity, it really became part of the brand's identity.
Totally. Which leads to another question. Who was actually watching this? Like, who was the audience?
Yeah, and how did the show itself get people talking about it?
Right.
So IMDb says the show first aired on Saturday mornings. So their main audience was kids.
Makes sense.
And what do kids love more than a good mystery, with some funny stuff thrown in?
Yeah.
You've got Scooby and Shaggy's slapstick comedy, plus the suspense of waiting to see what the monster really is. It's like the perfect combo for kids.
Totally. And that probably led to what McKinsey calls consequential word of mouth. Yeah. Just imagine it. Kids watch these mysteries on Saturday morning, then they go to school on Monday, and they can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, did you see that ghost? Or what about when Scooby and Shaggy did that crazy thing? It's all about sharing that experience, and that's what really gets the buzz going.
And you know, it's interesting. Even when they tried different things with the franchise, like with a pup named Scooby-Doo, they changed the animation style and made the characters younger. The basic appeal of the show stayed the same. Collider talks about this. And people kept talking about the brand.
Yeah.
Like across generations even.
Yeah.
So that tells you something about how powerful the original concept was. People just naturally wanted to talk about it.
Okay, so we've looked at who they were and who they were talking to.
Yeah.
Now let's get into what we're calling their accidental WOM strategy. Because they didn't have a formal plan for all this. So what was it about the show that got people talking so much?
Well, one big thing was that the mysteries themselves were super shareable. Like User Pilot explains. You've got the suspense, the clues, all those red herrings they throw in. And then that satisfying moment when they take off the mask and reveal who the bad guy is, it just gives people so much to talk about. Kids would be asking each other, did you guess who it was?
Yeah.
Or what was the scariest part?
And don't forget about the emotional roller coaster. Big Commerce talks about that. Sure, the show was for kids, but they didn't shy away from making things a little spooky sometimes. But then it would always turn out to be okay in the end.
Right.
It was just a person in a costume. And even though it was a mild scare, it's the kind of thing that sticks with you. And that makes you want to talk about it. It's like, oh my gosh, that ghost looks so real.
Exactly. And the whole unmasking thing that became like this ritual, it was like everyone was trying to solve the puzzle together. Even if the viewer wasn't actually out there gathering clues, they were still on that journey with the gang. And that shared experience is what drives word of mouth. People want to compare notes, share their theories. That's all part of it.
And then you had those catchphrases.
Mm-hmm.
Big Commerce calls them word-of-mouth triggers. And they're so true. Row, raggy, jinkies. These phrases became instantly recognizable. They were like little pieces of the brand itself. Kids would repeat them all the time. They became part of their language. And that just reinforces the brand's presence in their minds and in their conversations.
Totally. But it's important to remember that even Scooby-Doo has had its ups and downs. Like, not everything they've done has been a hit. Collider's ranking of all the different shows.
Right.
And then there was the cancellation of Velma. Comicbook.com reported on that. It shows that even the most popular brands can have times when people just aren't as into it.
That's a really good point. It proves that staying on top isn't automatic.
Yeah.
You have to keep working at it. You got to stay relevant and keep connecting with your audience.
Exactly. And sometimes even when you try to shake things up, like Collider points out with Scooby-Doo, for example, some people just didn't love it. Sometimes those new additions just miss the mark. And that can actually hurt the positive word of mouth that the original brand built up.
It's a risk. So we've seen how Scooby-Doo built this amazing brand, kind of by accident.
Right.
Let's take this to the real world and see how these ideas show up in real businesses that are doing WOM really well.
Absolutely. So a great example is that Cadbury Gorilla commercial that McKinsey talks about. Do you remember that one?
I do.
It was that commercial with the gorilla playing the drums. It was so unexpected and memorable, people couldn't stop sharing it online. And it really boosted sales and how people saw the brand. It's like how those kids would go around telling everyone about the coolest Scooby-Doo episode they just watched.
It's about creating those moments that people want to share. And Sprout Social and User Pilot, they both talk about how important it is to create content that's both unique and shareable. And Scooby-Doo was full of that. Think about all those crazy monsters and scenarios they came up with.
Oh, yeah.
They were so creative. It gave kids something exciting and different to talk about.
Totally. And now we talk a lot about user-generated content. Sprout Social and other folks who write about WOM talk about this all the time. But back then, before the internet, kids were already doing it.
Right.
When they'd act out scenes from the show or just talk about their favorite parts, they were basically promoting the brand without even realizing it.
Exactly. It's like they were creating their own Scooby-Doo content. And that's powerful. And let's not forget about those brand advocates. MailChimp and Sprout Social, they talk about them a lot.
Yeah.
And those were those kids who were just so into Scooby-Doo that they couldn't help but tell their friends about it. They weren't getting paid or anything. They were just genuinely excited, and they wanted to share that. And that's the best kind of advertising you can get.
Absolutely. So to sum it all up, the Scooby-Doo gang, with their unique look, their consistent stories, those engaging mysteries, and let's not forget the catchphrases. They managed to build this incredibly powerful brand just by getting people talking. And they did all this way before anyone was even using terms like brand awareness or word-of-mouth marketing.
Pretty amazing. And that leads us to our final thought for you today. Think about how something as simple as a cartoon about a talking dog can turn into a huge brand. If you deliver it consistently, connect with your audience, and give people something to talk about, it can really work. So what are those things in your world? What are those mysteries? What are those experiences that you can create that will get people talking? Think about what made Scooby-Doo so successful and see how those same ideas can work for you.
Yeah, you never know what might catch on.
You really don't.
It's worth thinking about.
It is.